Hello, everybody, and welcome to Coffee with Kenobi's Facebook Live every Monday night at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. I am your host, Dan Z. Excited to talk some Star Wars with each and every one of you this evening. I don't know how the weather is where you are at, but here it is overcast. In fact, it's downright raining, and that's nice because we've needed some rain. And hopefully you are enjoying some decent weather where you are at. We've got a great show for you this evening. You can find Coffee with Kenobi, of course, here every Monday night at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. And, of course, everywhere you can find Coffee with Kenobi on podcasts. We hope that you will join us, whether it's iTunes, Google Play, Google Podcasts, Spreaker, Stitcher, all that good stuff. We like to look at Star Wars in a whole new way, Though it has been 7 years, I don't know if it's a new way anymore, but we want to make you think, we want to make you laugh, and we want to have a good time. That's exactly what things are all about here at Coffee with Kenobi's Facebook Live. Again, I'm your host, Dan Z. Excited to be with you tonight. We are going to have a great show. Hello, Mary. Mary says, the evening started with watching Ashley X9's live Instagram celebrating 10 years of her universe. Now fun with Dan and the CWK gang. That's right. Yes, 10 years of her universe. Isn't that amazing? Ashley X9, of course, a great ambassador of Star Wars, a friend of Coffee with Kenobi, a very nice person. Her husband's awesome too. We're big fans of the X9s here at the Zara household. There's no doubt about that. So tonight's show, we've got a couple things. First, we're going to, of course, talk about our top fives. Tonight's top five is your top five favorite First Order Stormtrooper armor designs. And we've done the original trilogy, Stormtroopers, basically the Galactic Civil War era. We've done Clone Troopers. And now we're going to look at First Order. So for me, of the three groups, the First Order armor has the least to pick from, and it's maybe the least interesting of the three, but there's still some gems there as well. And then next week's top five is going to be a really fun one that I'm really excited about. So let's go ahead and jump in again. Thanks, everybody. It's great to see all of you here. The chats aren't really popping up yet, so maybe you just haven't joined yet, or maybe it hasn't shown up yet. Either way, be sure to comment throughout the show. I would love to feature your comments, just like I did with Mary's and like I'm doing with Minta's right now. We love interacting with you. That, of course, makes this so much more fun. So we're going to look at our top five favorite First Order Stormtrooper armor designs, and then we're going to look at Chapter 5 of the Rise of Skywalker, continuing our Coffee with Kenobi book study. Colby says, welcome to the Terror Dome. Yes, Colby. Awesome to have you, my friend. Colby is making a reference to one of my favorite songs ever from Public Enemy. Corey, Tom, and I, for our CWK Pro, our top five lists have become really, really popular. And this week we did 10 through 6 of our favorite songs. And so that's been a huge hit. Very, very fun. Just wait till you hear 1 through 5. That's going to be a blast. Hello, Ross. Ross is checking in all wings. Let's report in. Ross is here. Colby's here. Minta's here. Mary's here. I know Mason's out there watching. So this is good. This is very, very good stuff. All right. Top 5 time. Here we go. Again, these are your top 5 favorite First Order Stormtrooper designs. Can everybody hear me okay? The software I used did an update, and it's doing some wonky things. It looks like it's doing okay, but let me know if there's any kind of problems with the sound, and I will be sure to try to adjust it on my end. So, my number 5 of top 5 favorite First Order Stormtrooper armor designs is the TIE Fighter pilot. This is an image from a collectible. It's really the best one that features it all. I was weighing between this one and the special ops one that has the red down the middle, but I like the kind of the black one better. TIE Fighter pilots, I remember when I first saw A New Hope, and you just very quickly saw a couple images of TIE Fighter pilots, and you almost took a double take the first time because they're just very similar to Stormtroopers, but different enough that you notice there's something out of the ordinary. So they always stood out. When I saw the TIE pilot ones, again, very similar to the classic First Order Stormtrooper design, but the top of the helmet itself has a much different thing going on, which is pretty neat. And I've always find it was interesting I mean, again, there's not a ton to choose from, although I do think my number one is going to surprise you. But what does everyone else think? What are your favorites in your top 5 favorite First Order Stormtrooper armor designs? Again, I kind of like this one. I like the all black. I like that it's got the great breathing apparatus at the front there, and just a very, very interesting outlook and interesting design. But let me know what you think yours is. LJ is here. LJ, it's okay. I saw your hall pass, so you're safe, buddy. No worries. Good to have you on the show. So everyone else, Minta, Colby, LJ, Ross, Mary, everyone else watching. Looks like we got some folks watching tonight, which is wonderful. What do you have? Minta says the Stormtrooper with the jetpacks are one of many that stood out to me. Very good. Those are really, really fun. And I'm assuming you mean the ones that we got to see in the Rise of Skywalker. They are great fun. It was kind of surprising to see, and of course when they all say they fly now, that was pretty interesting. Ross says I'll go with the rank and file regular 1 and 5. All right, good choice. You really can't go wrong with those at all. Colby says I love the look of Pyre from Resistance. That's right. And if you are on Card Trader and you are friends with Cornfed Tech, who is Greg from Rebel Base Card, he collects those. So if you want to do a trade on Star Wars Topps digital card trader app, Greg is a big fan of Pyre for sure. Jeff says his basic is number 5 as well. Jeff, good to see you back, my friend. LJ also says the Rocket Trooper from episode 9. And Mary echoing what said, yes, they fly now. That's right. That's funny. So speaking of that, that's actually my number 4, the Jet Troopers from the Rise of Skywalker. They first premiered, I believe, at San Diego Comic-Con, and then they showed up at the it was at the D23 Expo. I remember seeing them when I went to the D23 Expo this year. Minta continuing the joke, very nice. And I remember thinking, okay, so continually these, as well as like the Snow Trooper and the Flame Trooper ones that are out there, the design at the bottom of the bucket, the helmet itself, is quite a bit different from what we've seen with most of the classic Stormtrooper designs over the past 42 years of Star Wars, which I think is interesting. It's certainly not a look that I instantly gravitate for as far as the bottom of the helmet, but I do appreciate the authenticity and the fact that they do something different, but also put a new spin on it. Kind of that thin visor is kind of like the Black Hole reminds me. Minta's number 4 is the TIE Fighter pilots. Jeff saying, throwing out the Jeff Trooper is his number 2, which is pretty cool. So there's that. See, again, I so far they've got what they have is really cool, but I feel like there's just not as many. Although to be fair, with the original trilogy and the Galactic Civil War era, not only do we have The Empire Strikes Back, Star Wars, and Return of the Jedi, but we also have Star Wars Rebels, Rogue One, and Solo. So there's a lot more opportunity there to pick from stuff. LJ says the Executioner Trooper, that's their official name from episode 8. Yes, I like the black and white armor, and the axe was pretty slick. Yes, the Executioner Trooper armor, that did premiere in The Last Jedi Knight. I believe that is what it's called. I almost put that one on there because it's very unique too. Oh, that's all right. At first I thought you were just being really hip, LJ, with your slang, but I knew what you were saying. Ross, Executioner Trooper. Yep. He's got that one on there as well. Very good. Very good. So Jet Trooper again, my number 4. My number 3, Ross said this was his number 5, but my number 3 is the classic design. I was a little surprised I didn't put it first, because I've always liked it. I remember seeing it for the first time when we saw the teaser trailer to The Force Awakens. It premiered on Black Friday back in 2014. And I remember thinking instantly, oh, this is like a new look on the Stormtroopers. This is pretty cool. And I've always liked them. I remember when they were doing promotions, Mark Hamill dressed up in this, and he went out into the streets and chatted with people, and he would reveal that he was actually Luke Skywalker, and that was pretty cool. I almost got this armor too. I have the classic Stormtrooper armor from Novos almost put together. Hopefully I'll finish that this summer. And I almost got the new one too, but I thought, well, I better get my original armor taken care of first. But, you really can't go wrong with the classic Stormtrooper armor. It's pretty great. Minta says the Sith Trooper had a great look to them. Yeah, those are really cool too. Pretty much the same design, but a very striking red, which I think stands out. So yeah, good call, Minta. Ross's number 3 is the Flame Trooper. I was wondering if someone was going to pick that one. They're fun to play in Battlefront. That's for sure. Very, very powerful. I think the Flame Troopers are extra kind of frightening because they never really talk in the films. So sometimes that silence can be a little more sinister in nature, perhaps. LJ says, Sith Trooper, the bright red and the textured armor was pretty awesome. I'm guessing this is Dan's number 1. We shall see, my friend. We shall see. I haven't mentioned it yet. That is true. But I think my 1 and 2 might surprise you. You just never know. That's the beauty of why we stay tuned, of course. Very good. All right, so that is my number 3. My number 2 is not my number 1, as my buddy LJ predicted, but it is the Sith Trooper. Easily could have been my number 1. When you see my number 1, you'll understand why. But not only do I think the red is very striking, but the texture to them, as LJ mentioned, and Minta pointed them out about the gray look, they just really look cool. They look very, very kind of scary and frightening, but very powerful. And just the way they almost have a bit of weird grace to them for being basically a stormtrooper. But yeah, there's just something very cool about them. When Mace and I first saw them, we thought they were awesome. The red just really stands out. Mary says Phasma's version armor. Yeah, Phasma's armor, that hasn't come up yet either. Phasma's armor, very similar to the original armor, but it's just got this kind of this silver / gray to it, and she's got that red cape, which is really, really cool too. Minta's number 2 is the basic trooper. Awesome. And Mary's number 2 is the Sith Trooper. So yeah, we're starting to see more of the Sith Trooper. We've just gotten the first call for Phasma, and maybe that'll be a lot of people's number 2 or people's number 1. Interesting stuff. I should have kept a running tally, and we could, of course, maybe this is a good time to mention that if you ever want to go back and watch old episodes of CWK Live, I always have them on YouTube, and I always put them on Instagram for you to check out and watch later. And it is fun to see over the last couple of months basically how the show has evolved, the top 5s, and you can look back at your top 5s and remember what you picked and wonder if you would change anything. And you can also watch my hair grow over the past couple of months too. All right, so Jeff says number 1 is his Sith Trooper, which is cool. LJ's number 2 is the TIE Pilot for all the reasons mentioned before. Very good. All right, so my number 1, Ross's number 2 is the Scuba Trooper from the Resistance series, which is also, by the way, my number 1. I was going to say this is a bit of a deep cut, but Ross beat me to the punch, and rightfully so. I'm glad that you did, Ross. If you haven't seen Star Wars Resistance, it's a great animated series. Is it as good as the Clone Wars Rebels? No, but I don't think it has to be. It's trying to do different things. It's much shorter. It's got more challenges storytelling wise because it's got a very, very small window of time in the chronology of the mythology of Star Wars. But it does some powerful stuff, and there's some great acting in it. But when I saw these Scuba Troopers at the end of Season 1, I was blown away. First, they kind of reminded me of G.I. Joe figures a little bit, like Torpedo from the Joes or from the Cobra Eels, which are the frogmen, essentially, from Cobra. Boy, would I love to do a G.I. Joe podcast, by the way, but that's neither here nor there. But the Scuba Troopers are just this wonderful look. I got to write about them for StarWars.com a couple years ago. I just think I've never really seen anything like them. There are some clone troopers in, I believe, the premiere of Season 3 of Star Wars: The Clone Wars that Mason and I were doing a search getting prepared for the show tonight, and we found them, and that was a kind of a fun reminder. But I think the kind of the dark blue and just the way they had their Stormtrooper helmet to them, but they don't have, they just have just a different look, but they have the Stormtrooper thing, but I like scuba stuff anyway. So I'm kind of babbling, so I apologize about that. But yeah, they're great. They're so cool. Colby's number 1 is Phasma. Great choice, Colby. Ross says, so G.I. Joe style. That's right, man. That's right. Absolutely. Can't beat it. Minta's number 1 is also Phasma. Simple yet powerful in the cape, added flair. Yes, and You just get the hint that Phasma loves that. I mean, she is a pretty powerful customer. If you've ever read Phasma by Delilah S. Dawson and seeing how Phasma joins the First Order, she is not somebody who's not on your side. And honestly, she seems to be pretty much against everybody. So she is a force to be reckoned with. Jeff says, I forgot about the Scuba Troopers. Nice pick, Daniel. Thank you, man. Appreciate that. LJ's number 1, the Generic Stormtrooper. I really like the redesign of the armor. The angles and the paint scheme on the helmet were a great upgrade to the original. Very good. Tim is here. Hey, Tim. Good to see you, my friend. Tim's number 1 is Phasma also. We're getting a lot of call for Phasma, which is great. Again, a great character, a great image. The armor is very striking. And Gwendolyn Christie's voice really sells it, too. Mary's the number 1 is the basic original Trooper armor. Yeah, I really had a hard time between this. Well, I didn't really I knew that the Scuba Trooper was going to be my number 1, but the Sith Trooper and the original armor, I kind of waffled back and forth because I like both of them quite a bit. So, very, very good. Anybody else want to weigh in on their favorite armor designs for the top 5 picks? We're going to do our book study next. I will say now, usually I wait till the end of the show, but I'll just say next week's top 5 is going to be top 5 favorite bounty hunters. I believe maybe Tyler Pompa had suggested it last week. I thought that Mason did, but he reminded me that someone on Facebook did. So whoever did, thank you for putting it into my psyche, because that is a good choice. Ross is the Riot Control Trooper. Oh, that's a cool one. That's a deep cut. Ross is always good for the deep cuts. He's got a nice extensive knowledge of the Star Wars mythology for sure. Good choice. Anybody else, as always, feel free to weigh in while we're doing this. Otherwise, we're going to move on to the CWK book study after I have a sip of coffee. One Nation, of course. Okay, so everybody get your copies of the Rise of Skywalker out. Today we are going to look at the Chapter 5 of the Rise of Skywalker, the novelization by Ray Carson. It is going to be an interesting one. There's a lot to dissect here. Colby is excited. Yeah, next week, no shortage of bounty hunters. That's going to be a hard one. I mean, it's going to be maybe harder than the lightsaber hilts. I don't know. I mean, lightsabers I'm more interested in, but there's a lot of great looking designs for bounty hunters, and there's all kinds to choose from comics and movies and animated stuff. There's a lot to choose from here. All right, so Chapter 5 starts on page 63. LJ says Toro Calican is Dan's number 1. You know, I'm just going to keep you in suspense for the whole week. Yeah. My number 1, actually I already know my number 1, and I already know my number 2. 3, 4, and 5 are going to be hard to sort of narrow down, but interesting, LJ. Now we know who yours number 1 is. Very good. All right. So Chapter 5 starts out from the side of the enemy's perspective. On the bottom of 63 to 64, we find out the reason why General Hux, or one of the reasons why General Hux does not like Kylo Ren. And I'm going to read this to you because I think at first I think it sort of seems like comedic, but then when you think about the way the First Order does business, and it even goes all the way through the Aftermath trilogy as far as, well, the Empire too, but I think they really lay the groundwork in in the Aftermath trilogy to explain this. Okay. All right, so this is Ren talking. There's no time, said Ren. His voice was distant and mechanical now that he'd redonned the mask. Hux distrusted masks on principle, but he was glad for Ren's, and here's the part I want you to listen to, because it spared him the indignant assault of the Supreme Leader's hair. So right away, I literally did an LOL on that one, because I know that for a lot of fans of Star Wars, they love Adam Driver's hair. I think he's a handsome fellow. So when I read this, I thought, oh, this is kind of a call out to that. But actually, no, there's actually a real reason why, besides kind of the fun, tongue-in-cheek reference here. It says, a good leader led by example, and Ren's hair was the furthest thing from regulation. A small detail, to be sure, but details mattered, and this one represented everything Hux hated about Ren. He was the exception to everything outside the rules. Disordered. So to me, that's important. And in real history, you see examples of people who want to suppress want you to maintain their status quo, not the status quo, and do things by their book. General Hux has this manicured, well-groomed hair, high and tight, the way it's cut. Yeah, he might have hair envy, Colby, but it's also sort of a sign, as Mary points out, we all love the hair. It's a sign that if you're like, hair is wild and crazy, you mean you're disordered. The first order, it's in the title. They want order. They want you to toe their line. And Kylo Ren doesn't do that. He kind of plays by his own rules. And we've seen throughout this book so far, through the first 5 chapters, that Kylo Ren is using First Order resources for his own benefit, not for the benefit of what many in the First Order think. But of course, no one's going to stand up to him because he's Kylo Ren. He's very powerful in the Force, and he's got quite a temper, plus pretty dangerous lightsaber to boot. So I just thought that was fun. Shows a little bit of the rivalry and kind of gives some reason and rationale about why Hux doesn't like Ren. Able to put something humorous in there, but also to prove kind of an important, heavy point as well. So then we go to the Festival of the Ancestors, and the only reason I bring that up because we know we're on the planet Phasma, but I think it's kind of neat because it says it happens every 42 years. Now, why is that interesting? To me, that's almost like an Easter egg. Anybody want to guess really quickly why? If you think about it, it'll make sense. But why every 42 years is there the Festival of the Ancestors, and why is that maybe interesting? Mita says Hux could see that Kylo thought outside the box, something he couldn't accept. I agree. I do agree with that. And Hux doesn't like anything that he can't control, that's for sure. Once every 42 years, exactly. So why do you think that is significant? Exactly, Mary's got it. 1977 to 2019. The first Star Wars movie of the Skywalker saga to the last one every 42 years. I thought that was a really fun touch. Because this came out, again, as Mary just pointed out, in 2019. Colby got that one too. Minta's got this one. A New Hope was released 42 years prior. So I thought, again, look at these smart people we have. No surprise to me. But that was a fun, sort of a little Easter egg that they threw in there. Okay, so Rey talks to the Aki Aki girl and freezes when asked to reveal her family name. Let's see. I could find it here and share it with you, I suppose. Yeah. Their ancestors, this is the part in the novel, it's on page 67. Their ancestors live in the fire, C-3PO said. This is how they show their gratitude. She says her name is Nambi Jima. Rey said, oh, that's an excellent name. I'm Rey. Nambi asked a question, and C-3PO said, she would be honored to know your family name. And then it says, Rey's smile froze. I don't have one. I'm just Rey. The words echoed in her head, just Rey. So that is, to me, I understand why this is here. And I think it makes sense that she might still be struggling with that. I do feel like that's pretty well addressed in The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. So the fact that it comes back again here, I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to set up the kind of the emotional power of the last 10 minutes of this film, which is great, and I think is a good piece of storytelling. But I've always sort of struggled. Well, always. It's only been out since December. It's only 6 months or so. But to me, the fact that it hits her like that, I guess that would make sense. I mean, she doesn't know who her family lineage is yet. But while it may not bug her for like profoundly, because the next sentence is about Kylo Ren showing up and she forgets about it. But there's still a little bit of healing there, which again, I suppose is realistic, because just because we conquer certain things in our lives doesn't mean they go away forever. Sometimes they come back. And sometimes that is something that you have to continue to fight until you can finally figure it out. So it is something that is a part of her, but I worry that they might make it too much of a focal point, because I think Rey is stronger than that. But like Minta says, she's still trying to sort out who she is, which is very believable. It's certainly believable. She's still trying to figure it out, and of course she does figure things out very, very soon in this book, as well as in the film itself. Okay. The middle of 68. Let's look at the middle of page 68. Rey talks about being disappointed, and I want to see what you think about this. This is when Rey and Rey and Kylo Ren are speaking to each other. Okay. This wasn't a vision, the narrator tells us. It was a force connection, their first since Crate. And with the connection came a certainty that turned the blood in her veins to ice. He'd been looking for her. Palpatine wants you dead, he said simply and without preamble, which I really like that sentence, without preamble. That's great. Serving another master, she asked, feeling strangely disappointed. He says, no, I have other plans. Of course he did. So let's go back just a few steps. When he says she says, serving another master, she asked, feeling strangely disappointed. Why is Rey disappointed? Why do you think here that Rey is disappointed that Kylo Ren is serving another master? This little section here, we go through it all. He throws in her face that she was alone, that she was abandoned. She throws back at him that he killed Han Solo. And they're just throwing mud and just basically poking at each other's basically tender spots, the parts that they're still mentally are having a very, very hard time with. But why is she disappointed that he's serving another master? I know what I think. I think there's a couple of things going on here. And I'll weigh in if no one wants to weigh in, which is totally fine. I get that. Or if you're still kind of marinating on that. But why is Rey disappointed? It says, Palpatine wants you dead, he said simply and without preamble. Serving another master, she asked, feeling strangely disappointed. So to me, I think she's disappointed in him still, in spite of herself, in spite of what she has seen, in spite of what she thinks about him and how he turned on her multiple times, she still is holding out hope that there is good in him. Now, I interpret this, she has a kinship with him. There's no question about that. We know that they're going to be dyads in the Force, even though it's not revealed yet in the book here, or in the story here. But I think that she is drawn to him. But I don't think it's a romantic thing. We can certainly debate that, and we probably will at some point, which is great. I think debate is important. As I've said many times, it's okay to disagree, not to be disagreeable. And you'll never see me disagreeable. I want to hear what you think and what you have to say. I think that's very valuable and very important. But I think she's disappointed in him that he continues to toe this weird line that he has in himself. So let's see what everybody else says. We've got some people weighing in. Mary says she sees the turmoil in him as well. They are coming from the same emotional place. Interesting. She feels he is stronger than having to need a master. That's right. Why does he's so angry and he's always lashing out at people. He's upset that his uncle is Luke. He's upset that he is royalty because of his mother and that his father is the famous Han Solo. He doesn't like living up to that, but yet he always is serving someone. And that's, I think, Rey is seeing that disappointment and frustration. Minta says she's disappointed that he hasn't pulled away from the dark side, even though he has a light in him. Colby says, I think Rey wants him to be his best. She wants him to be Ben. In her eyes, if he's serving a master, he's still far from his best. Excellent. I like all of that. Mary, Minta, and Colby drop in knowledge tonight, and thank you very much for your feedback. And I agree. She wants him to be his best. She doesn't know why he persists in following other people when he clearly makes him angry. But anger, fear, aggression, all elements of the dark side, which Rey does not relate to. Even though she has that pull, that consternation internally, she's still better than that. And Kylo is too, but it takes him a while to get there. He goes through a lot of anger and rage, to be sure. So, page 73, Kylo does not like to be doubted in his feelings of hope. So let's turn to page 73. There's a great passage there. Here we go. So this is basically, I point this out, and it's a really quick one. I'll just read it really, really quickly. You're certain, General Pride asked. It was her, Kylo insisted. Strange how anyone could doubt the power of the Force after everything that had happened. Or maybe it was him they doubted, and they put him in italics. To me, this is great because, he's still like that little kid that feels like he has to prove something. He's like, what? If you're not doubting the power of the Force, you must be doubting me. And usually he would kind of lose it there, but he doesn't. We fast forward a little bit. Sir, said Officer Candia, Microanalysis says this comes from the Midian system, Phasma, Forbidden Valley. Kylo felt a surge of hope. He'd have to move fast. Their Force connection had alerted Rey to his intentions, and she'd flee Phasma as soon as she'd gotten what she'd come for, whatever that was. So the reason I point that out, besides the fact that after all he's done, after all he's proved, after how powerful he is, he still is insecure and thinks that people doubt him, which makes him angry. But to me, that's him internally doubting himself. That is what we call projection. And he's good at that. He is still fighting the frustration he has within himself. But I like it says Kylo felt a surge of hope. Now, ordinarily, I wouldn't really think about it, but this is Star Wars. So when you see the word hope in Star Wars, that is a big, big, powerful word that means good. That means believing in a better tomorrow and a brighter future and a different turn of events. So Kylo here, the surge of hope, is that he's going to find Rey because he wants to turn to the dark side. But I think, again, contextually, it's fair to say, is that a little bit of a seed that's being planted there that it's possible for him to have hope? Important. I think it's important. Okay. Ochi of Bestoon is who we find out about from Lando Calrissian. Lando's introduction here is super cool. Like, he uses his sort of crossbow thing. It's almost like a miniature one that Chewbacca has. He gets rid of that stormtrooper. He takes off his disguise, and it's Lando Calrissian. Everyone's sort of starstruck, and Chewbacca says almost jumps over Finn to get out of his, or tries to get him out of the way so he can greet his old friend Lando. And I love that so much. Page 73 describes this person. It says, Lando Calrissian leaned forward so they could all hear him over the rumble of the treadmill. Luke and I were chasing a real scoundrel, he said. And it's not scoundrel like we like to think of Han and Lando, of course. It says his name was Ochi of Bestoon. The name gave Rey a start, though she wasn't sure why. Ochi of Bestoon. A Jedi killer since the Clone Wars, he was searching for Sith relics, Lando continued. Evil old things. And then they go through kind of a description and says he didn't look dangerous at all. We haven't seen anything besides... Well, we do see a flashback later of Ochi of Bestoon. But for some reason, this individual was hunting down Jedi. And I don't know what his connection is to Vader, the Emperor, the Sith, or any of that stuff. But he liked looking for Sith relics, and he didn't like the Jedi. He's obviously a bad dude. So it's interesting. It's interesting. I want to throw in here a couple of things. Got some great feedback here as well. Let's see. No, we already covered that one. Yeah, I really like that. Good job, everybody. I'm so inspired when I see your feedback, because you've got some really interesting, insightful things that I really treasure checking out. If you listen closely, you can hear my dog in the background, so I apologize for that. So the thing that I think is a little problematic about this part is kind of the dark place that it goes. It says that there's like a subplot about the First Order taking children of rebel leaders and trying to turn the kids against people who are the spirit of the rebellion. You know, we've got, obviously, Kylo Ren is the ultimate example, because he's the child of Han Solo and Leia Organa, who are obviously huge, huge heroes in the rebellion. Obviously, he's close to Luke as well. Lando's not sure what happened to his daughter. He fears that she's a stormtrooper or something like that. So to me, that's a dark place. And to me, that is what has always separated the First Order from the Empire. Well, that may go on and be a thing in the Empire. For here, it's magnified. To me, it's very much magnified. Because I just feel like there's just like a ton of darkness. And the First Order always felt so oppressive to me, because they just seemed like they would go the extra mile to be bad, or to be mean, or to be evil. And while the Empire does that, you don't really see that presented in quite the same way in the films. Now, ever since we've had books and comic books, yes, we've seen that quite a bit more. But it's still very noticeable and certainly disturbing. So I guess I don't really like that subplot, because if it's really that important, I think we need to see it in the movie somehow, some way, in some shape. Because I don't see any, like, angst or internal suffering or conflict from Billy D. Williams as far as Lando Calrissian goes in The Rise of Skywalker. But in the book, there is. So I really would love to know one day why they chose not to put that in there. Minta says, Ocho may have felt he was wronged by the Jedi early on and he felt fascination with the dark side. It very well could be. And maybe if we ever get an animated series in this timeline, we may find out about that. And that would be worth the price of admission. Now, Ocho may end up being someone like Sifo Dyas from Attack of the Clones, where it's just a name you just know very little about. You're intrigued by who this person is and how they impact the mythology. So maybe we'll get that someday. I hope so. That would be really, really cool. So those are the big things I wrote down about Chapter 5. Chapter 6 starts on page 77, and it goes to page 87, so it's really only 10 pages. We'll just stick to what we've been doing. It's just easier to kind of keep track of things. I don't want to overwhelm everybody with homework and stuff like that. So Chapter 6 is going to be for next week for The Rise of Skywalker. Again, while you're reading this, I highly encourage you. You should always do this when you're reading anyway. But like, write things down. I have a notebook here where I keep track of different things that catch my eye. Sorry about the glare here. They catch my eye about what I'm reading. Like things that I want to talk about, things that I want to ask you about, questions that I have, or things that I feel like I need to read and share with all of you, or to go back and revisit at another time. So some interesting stuff there as well. So now, yeah, it looks like we might get done a little bit earlier tonight, which is great. What questions do all of you have in tonight? So anything about this book, anything about Star Wars Celebration? There's a lot of stuff going on with Disney these days and all that good stuff. Where are you at with your Star Wars? Have you caught up with the comics? What are you reading? What are you reading in the world of Star Wars? How about that? Minta's got something. She says, the First Order seemed to believe that brainwashing the young ones would make them more of, more suitable for war. Yeah, I think so. I think so too. And also, again, to sort of take away the fighting spirit of the rebellion and the resistance and the New Republic. That's something that evil can't understand. They can't understand good. They can't understand hope. And they certainly can't understand love. So that's how they try to combat it. Obviously, it doesn't work, but they sure make things tricky and interesting. There is certainly plenty of evidence for that. So if there are no questions, next week's show, again, we're going to look at your top 5 favorite bounty hunters. There are going to be a ton of them to look at, a ton of them. And that is going to be interesting. I mean, you've got great designs, great characters, great weapons, great adventures and arcs that they're in. I'm going to try to stick primarily to the designs of the characters, but who they are as individuals, I think, is important too. It's going to be a fun one. And again, as we're doing this, if you ever think of anything that you want me to talk about on CWK Live, I would be happy to do that for sure. Ross says, Bounty Hunter Comics number 3 on Wednesday. Can't wait. It has been forever. I know. And that Bounty Hunter series, that's good stuff. Tom and Corey love that series. Honestly, I still haven't even read number 1 yet. I need to do that, I know. But everyone tells me that it's really, really cool. It's got, those great classic bounty hunters. I don't want to say too much, but there's a lot of fun to be had talking about bounty hunters for sure. Yes, and Mina says, "Yay, bounty hunters!" Exactly, that's good. So we'll definitely, maybe we'll do even less of the book study unless people really like it. I want to get back to the trivia too because I think that's a great time. I love doing that one. Again, your feedback is so important. As is your support. I mean, your support does so much for me, does so much for Coffee with Kenobi. Hopefully I can count on having a great discussion with all of you very soon about the Star Wars book, available October 20th, written by myself, Pablo Hidalgo, and Cole Horton. Man, 4 months away. It just seems so long. But, man, I can't wait to have everybody read it. You're going to have a great time with it. I'm certainly going to have a great time with it, talking about it with each and every one of you. Colby says, Ochi is one of those characters that could have a cool backstory that we may or may not get to enjoy someday. I agree. I think kind of like Sifo Dyas too. Maybe we'll find out about him. Maybe we won't. Ross says I won't send a pic. That's a private joke kind of. Ross sent me a pic one time of something, and it wasn't really a big deal, but he felt really bad, and you shouldn't, Ross. I mean, things happen. You're excited, and you're on top of things. and I wasn't for that one. So hey, that was on me, my friend. I'm excited to. Maybe we should just do more talk about some of the comic books too. And would you like to see guests? I could certainly have guests on Facebook Live that we can interview live on the show. That would be a trip. This week, speaking of trips, where it's going to be a fun show, I'm going to look at the classic Tartakovsky Star Wars Clone Wars micro series, and I'm going to have my good friend Drew Taylor on to talk about that. It's going to be fun. He's always great to talk to and always makes me laugh. And um, it's just too bad that he's so shy about his opinions. But we'll try to get him to come out of his shell. If you know Drew, he doesn't have a shell, so it'll be fun. So there's that, and of course, each and every week you can find Coffee with Kenobi. Again, wherever you find podcasts. When you're listening to the show, please let everybody know on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Pinterest. Suggest that they subscribe and listen too. I would love it. And if you want to do an iTunes review of Coffee with Kenobi, that would be wonderful too. Everything that you do helps support the show. Every way that you spread the word means so much to me, and I'm very, very grateful for that for sure. Colby says, will you be going back to class in the fall, or is your school still going to be remote learning? Colby, that's the big question, man. No one's sure yet. We hope so. Anything about it. Hopefully we'll find out. And LJ says, Drew Taylor, oh, that's going to be a wild ride. I know. It's going to be all kinds of fun. For it always is. And it's always all kinds of fun. Thank you, Jeff. Good to have you. Minta, this is the way indeed. Again, I love Monday nights, spending time with each and every one of you on Facebook Live. Please let everybody know about this show, about the podcast, about our social media. Help spread the word, because this great community we have is only as strong as what we have when we're talking about Star Wars in a healthy, positive, family-friendly, intelligent way. I appreciate it so much, and I appreciate each and every one of you for spending your Monday night with me. Have a great week and weekend. Look for the new podcast coming out in a couple of days, and remember, this is the podcast you're looking for. Thank you, Tim, and we will see everybody next week. Get your top 5 favorite bounty hunters ready, and Chapter 6 of Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker novelization book study will continue. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great week.